everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Cyber World. I'm your host, Sean O'Rourke. And if you're a regular visitor to my LinkedIn page and postings, you may recognize, realize, identify, whatever word you want to use at the moment, that I use the hashtag Cyberresiliency a lot. And when I go in and I talk to prospects, clients, even people who are curious about cyber and whatnot, they ask a lot what cyber resiliency means and what's the difference between that and cybersecurity. Well, I'm here to tell you what the difference is. So cybersecurity is only one part of a cyber resiliency plan. Cybersecurity is the front end or the guarding of your cyber environment, whether it be digital data, your network, your website, so on and so forth. What cyber resiliency is your ability to recover from a cyber event. Because believe it or not, it's going to happen to you. If you plug enough machines into the internet for long enough, you are going to have a cyber event. I say this often, it's not a matter of if, but when you have one. And your ability to recover from that is actually more important, or almost as important, as your ability to prevent an incident in the beginning. The reason being is because when you look at what happens after a cyber event is announced, not after it's discovered, after it's announced, that's when everybody piles on the company. That's when regulators come knocking at the door. That's when lawyers come knocking at their door and whatnot, because everybody's going to want a piece of the action. And unless you can prove to all the people who come knocking at your door that you've taken the steps ahead of time to not only prevent a cyber incident, but also to recover from one, I hate to tell you, but the courts, both at a state and federal level, have shown that they're just going to open the floodgates and people are going to be able to take as much as they want. And while you may have cyber liability insurance, carriers will only cover you up to a certain amount. And as I tell people all the time, it's not the value of the data to you, it's the value of the data to your customers or clients. And that number does not necessarily match what the insurance carrier is going to protect you for. So here's your marching orders for this week. I want you to get with your IT department. I want to get with your business folks. I want you to do a tabletop exercise. I want you to identify, one, where your greatest risks are. Is it your data? Is it your network? Is it your website? Two, I want you to be able to talk to your IT folks to make sure that you'll be able to remediate any of the most common damages done to any of those areas of risk. And three, I want you to create at least a game plan, at least a calling tree, at least some sort of templatized response to those common cyber events. Believe me, you will sleep better at night. You will come out ahead of the pack when it comes to having a cyber incident, and you'll make me so much more happy and less busy, which is actually my effort as I'm looking to retire early. Anyway, I'm Sean O'Rourke. I'm a cyber liability consultant for Combs & Company. Thanks again for joining in, and I'll see you next time. Hey everybody, Sean O'Rourke, cyber liability consultant at Combs & Company. If you want to know about cyber liability consulting or Combs & Company, please check out my bio. So this week was kind of a historic week in the state of New York because the state attorneys announced the first law action or legal action brought under the Department of Financial Services Part 500 cybersecurity rules. I won't go into the details of who's getting sued and whatnot. You can look that up. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because in the age of COVID, states are desperate for revenue. So if you thought they forgot that they had cyber laws on the books, I hate to tell you, they're thinking about that day and night because they realize that cyber is an area of revenue generation. And this is just the first instance. New York State and California both have new laws as well, the CCPA in California and the SHIELD Act in New York, that are also more expansive when it comes to cyber regulations and will catch people unawares. And I highly suggest that you learn about these. The New York SHIELD law and the CCPA pertain to the residents of those states. not necessarily if you do business in those states. So they could pertain to you even if you don't think that you actually do business in either New York or California. Again, this is all brought about because of the need for states to use the stick to get people to actually do the right things when it comes to cybersecurity, data privacy, and data security. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the people who are being sued or the companies being sued have done something wrong. They just may have gotten caught up in something and they exposed data and such. But for the most part, if you are not doing what you should when it comes to data security and data privacy, I highly suggest you do so. And then one other area that you can protect yourself is with cyber liability insurance. Cyber liability insurance here in the States will pay for regulatory action and regulatory fines, unlike in the European Union. So here's my call to action for you this week. Make sure that you know whose data you have, how much data you have, where the data is stored, and what you're doing to protect it. Also, I want you to look into the New York SHIELD Act and the California CCPA because you must understand whether or not those pertain to you. And I also want you to understand that all 50 states do have breach notification laws. So if something does get breached, you are going to have to notify those folks who were affected by that. Again, my name is Sean O'Rourke. I'm a cyber liability consultant. If you have any comments, questions, concerns when it comes to cyber regulations and the such, feel free to reach out. Thanks again. Take care. Hey everybody, Sean O'Rourke, cyber liability consultant at Combs & Company. And today I want to jump right into it because in the age of COVID, an issue that I've had for years when it comes to technology has really come to the forefront, and that is the acronym BYOD, Bring Your Own Device. That's actually been the standard for a lot of companies for a number of years, decades actually, to be able to bring your own personal laptop, your own personal mobile device, and have it be used both as your personal one and for work. Well, there are a lot of legal issues around that, a lot of court decisions that have muddied the waters about the practicality of bringing your own device to work. Well, now that we're not actually at work and we're working from home, bring your own device has actually been exacerbated. And here's my primary issue with it. There's no way to distinguish really unless you have logging on all these devices, in which case you're being intrusive on people's personal devices. There's no way to really know when people are working or send out information from the work account and whether or not it was entirely work related. And one example I'll give you is social media. There have been numerous rulings about the use of social media and its impact on your employment standing. You can make any kind of claims that you want from your own personal social media account within reason, as long as you make it on your own personal time from your own personal device. Well, now that everybody is working from home, potentially working from their own personal device, when is your personal time and what is your personal device? So my call to action for most companies, and this is really talking to employers because they're the ones facing all the liability, is come up with a definitive and documented process, procedure, whatever you want to call it, when it comes to using personal devices for work means. This will give you some mode of protection. It will allow all your employees to know what is work-related, what is not work-related, what will be accepted, what won't be accepted. And if anything sort of blows back on you, you can point to the fact that you had a lawyer draw up some legal documentation. You made sure all the employees saw it, make sure the employees signed it, and they should have all known better. And that gives you a little bit of protection on that front. So again, my name is Sean O'Rourke from Combs & Company. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, fears, anxieties when it comes to cyber insurance, or just the world in general, I'm always happy to chat. Thanks. Hey everybody, Sean O'Rourke again, cyber liability consultant at Combs & Company. And as a cyber liability consultant, I am usually brought in by clients who are looking to get the business side of the house in order so that they can prepare themselves to be hacked. And believe it or not, this is actually probably your best defense for when the event actually happens. IT is usually in a pretty good spot on how to respond to any kind of cyber incident, but the business side is not. I want to give you a quick example of something that I've actually started working on recently with a client who understands that they're going to have a lot of distributed work from home and work from the office personnel. And they're going to have people who are going to be commuting back and forth and bringing devices in to the office environment that may or may not be company owned. So what they wanted to do was create a policy and a procedure by which they could control whether or not devices that the company does not own get to be brought in to the office. So essentially we sat down and we did a tabletop exercise. And the reason why it's called a tabletop is because all our documents were on the tabletop. Go figure. Anyway, essentially what we did is we mapped out scenarios by which devices could be allowed into the environment if they were not owned by the company. We also mapped out the risks associated with each of those devices. Now, the most common devices were laptops and mobile phones. And the mobile phones, the two most prevalent, being Android phones and iPhones. And essentially, we just went through scenarios. If this, then this. If this, then this. If somebody wants to bring this in, then they have to do X, Y, and Z. And one of the reasons why we did this is because employees were actually complaining that since they weren't going to be fully in the office or fully at home, they didn't want to be commuting back and forth with devices. So the company is going to make an allowance for this distributed setup temporarily, but they needed some documentation. And they needed the documentation, one, for legal reasons so that they can give their employees definitive guidance on what can and can't be done, what their company can and cannot manage on their personal devices, but also because they actually have a cyber liability policy, very smart thinking, that could prove to be difficult to have a claim covered if they didn't have these documents in place, especially if the claim originates from a device that is not owned by the company. So what your marching orders are today is to try to look at the way your business is situated from a physical standpoint now. Are your employees working from home and the office? Are they only working from home? Are they using devices that are not owned by the company? What you need to do is you need to give yourself some legal and documented protection when it comes to these kind of situations and these kind of setups. So you need to do a tabletop exercise. It is merely an if-then exercise, but it will prove beneficial for you down the line and actually may establish some baseline that you can use going forward when everybody finally does return to the office. So again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns about cyber or pretty much anything else, I'm Sean O'Rourke. I'm always available to chat, usually, and thanks again for watching. Hey everybody, Sean O'Rourke, cyber liability consultant at Combs & Company, insurance brokerage and consultancy headquartered in New York City. And I typically record these videos at the end of the week because I like to build up some fodder from conversations that I have with people during the week to give me the topic that I'm going to present. And today I'm revisiting an oldie but a goodie. I had a prospect this week ask me, well, why do I need cyber liability consultant? I sell widgets. Well, it actually turned out to be a perfect time because I asked him if he had fire insurance. Well, basically he had general liability, which covers fire damage. And I said, how long would it take if you had a fire at your warehouse that wiped out all your inventory and your ability to produce your widgets? And he thought about it and he said it would take a very long time. And I said, okay, if I shut down your website or your ordering system or your ability to process the orders in your warehouse to get them shipped out, how long would that take you to recover? He couldn't answer the question. And so because he couldn't answer the question, I knew immediately that he was not prepared to have that happen to him. So I gave him his marching orders, which are your marching orders for this video. And it's something that I've harped on previously. You are to ask your IT folks, whether they are internal or external, how long it will take you to recover from a cyber incident. And if your IT folks hem and haw, you're to schedule a meeting. Maybe it's all day, maybe it's off site, maybe it's in your conference room. It doesn't really matter. But until you could come up with an answer on how long it's going to take you to recover from a cyber event, you need to sit there and work through the program. The reason being is every business now runs on their technology infrastructure, whether it's a communications standpoint, whether it's a processing standpoint, whether it's a data retention standpoint, it doesn't matter. Every business runs on an IT infrastructure. And if that infrastructure is taken out from under you and you don't know how long it's going to take to recover, that means it's going to take twice as long and be twice as painful, possibly 4 times as painful. So, again, my name is Sean O'Rourke. I'm dropping some knowledge on you. I know it's bad news because it's going to require some work, but it is mandatory in the 21st century. So if you have questions, comments, concerns, or you just want to vent, I'm always happy to chat. Thanks.